Evil Seducers is a fascinating entry in the mid 1970s catalogue of Shaw Brothers Studio, one of the most iconic film studios in Hong Kong cinema history. While the studio is primarily celebrated for its martial arts and heroic swordplay movies, they also ventured boldly into the horror genre, producing memorable and atmospheric films that stand apart from their kung fu epics. Founded in 1925, Shaw Brothers dominated Chinese language cinema for decades, producing around 1,000 films from the 1960s to the 1980s that reshaped global perceptions of kung fu and action choreography films. Yet Evil Seducer stands out because it veers into a creepier territory, blending suspense, supernatural elements, and a psychological thriller vibe. The story follows a scholar who refuses a matchmaking proposal involving a noble's daughter, setting off a chain of eerie events. As he reacts the conventional path expected of him, he becomes entangled with a mysterious woman whose nightly visits are both captivating and unsettling. These nocturnal encounters quickly take a darker turn as it becomes clear that nothing is as it seems, introducing an atmosphere thick with tension and mystery. Having seen a fair number of Shaw Brothers films, I must say I generally haven't been a huge fan of those films, largely due to the often over the top and sometimes goofy acting style that was typical in many Chinese films of this era. However, Evil Seducers was a pleasant surprise. It takes a much more serious approach to its material, although it doesn't entirely abandon that quirky charm that fans of Shaw Brothers might expect. This mingling of earnest storytelling with subtle, campy undertones gives the film an interesting dynamic, setting it apart from both the studio's usual martial arts fare and other horror films of the time. The pacing of the film is deliberate and slow, taking its time to build the narrative and atmosphere, which might not appeal to those who prefer fast moving plots. But this slow build up works in the film's favor because it allows the eerie and unsettling mood to linger and develop. The set designs and locations contribute effectively to this spooky vibe. Dark hallways, shadowy rooms, and richly decorated interiors pull the viewer deeper into the story's unsettling world. Later in the movie, the scares intensify with well executed sequences that generally unsettled me, something not often achieved by mid 70s horror from this region. Towards the end, the plot may start feeling a bit confusing or chaotic as it tries to juggle its supernatural elements and mystery. However, this confusion is clearly resolved by a smart twist that ties up loose ends and recontextualizes much of what has been seen. This twist not only brings satisfaction to the story but showcases a level of narrative sophistication that elevates Evil Seducers beyond standard genre fare. In conclusion, Evil Seducers is a compelling and atmospheric horror film that offers something different from Shaw Brothers' usual martial arts and horror movie extravaganzas. It combines a haunting mood, spooky visuals, and a suspenseful storyline with a surprising level of seriousness and depth without losing some of its quirky charm. My previous lukewarm opinions of Shaw Brothers films were challenged here, and I would recommend this one especially to fans of vintage horror and those curious about Hong Kong cinematic history. If you like this sort of content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. This film earns a solid 4.5 out of 5 for its unique tone, effective scares, and clever storytelling. So, as you can tell by my score, this is actually goes onto my one of my favorite movies lists. The version I saw was a very murky VHS quality version, but if this film ever gets released on Blu-ray, and especially in 4K Blu-ray, which will actually this movie will look so good in 4K. I'm actually going to buy this movie on Blu-ray.